Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And first we're going to talk about Novomykhailivka. As you can see, we have just one icon, but this is very important icon. We don't have, let's say, drone icons or artillery strikes. We have just one important update that was published by the forces of 79th Air Assault Brigade, the Ukrainian, brigade that is responsible for protection of this territory. And according to information we have, the Russians continued their offensive operation. There was no operational pause in Novomykhailivka after the Russians captured the stronghold. The Russians continue moving further. And according to information we have, according to the report of the 79th Air Mobile Brigade, the Russians during the previous night were attacking Konstantinovka, and the Russians were moving in Paraskovyevka. And the Ukrainians are saying that the biggest problem is not Russian attacks. The biggest problem is that the Russians were upgraded their, tactics, upgraded their approaches they were using for attacks. They are saying that now the Russians are using the most, armored tanks ever they've seen, with additional armor, with additional electronic warfare equipment, which is very difficult to destroy and to attack from the Ukrainian side. And another important thing that Ukrainians stated, the Russians start using completely new tactics. They start using the motor marines or motor troopers, motor storm troopers. So they're saying that currently the situation on the ground is okay, is normal, and it's become easy and possible to use as motorcycles, very fast motorcycles. And the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians are using, 4 motorcycles with, 2 stormtroopers on each, and they're very fast. It's very difficult to get them with FPV drones. It's very difficult to understand and to, project another wave of attack, because if you see tank, it goes very slow, and it's not a very big problem to prepare FPV drone operators, artillery, and to destroy the tank while it's moving. But when talking about motor marines, motor troopers, it's very difficult and complicated to project attack and to get ready before the Russian troopers enter the tree lines, enter the trenches, or another belt of fortifications. So this use of these motor troopers allowed the Russians to continue developing the progress in direction of Konstantinovka and Paraskovyevka with significant, progress and significant results. So most likely during the next 48 hours we're going to receive additional updates of Russian progress to the west, and maybe something like this will be captured by the Russians during the next, 72 hours, and we're going to receive some updates about the progress, as well as some Russian progress might happen in, to the north east of Paraskovyevka, and these, fields can be captured, maybe captured by the Russians easily as well by the use of these new tactics. Now we are moving to the north in direction of Marinka Georgievka. We have just reports from the pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State. They're saying that the Russians managed to improve their positions further to the west. The Russians, according to them, completely captured everything that located to the south of the water reservoir Ocheretyne. So according to pro-Ukrainian, mappers, this is already under the Russians. Also, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to maintain their positions in the fields between, Marinka Georgievka. So this report we received also by Deep State and by Syria. And according to the Russian sources, according to the sources on the ground, the Russians, as a result of offensive, managed to dig in deeper in the central part of Georgievka, and currently, according to Russians, they established control over something like this. Of course, completely different story, completely different picture. We see that Ukrainians also can't resist the Russians on the directions, and they're falling back. Krasnohorivka, no updates during the previous 24 hours. The Russians continue offensive operation, clearing the area, and continue preparation the territory before further storm operations. Then we move to Avdiivka direction. We have additional updates. According to information we have, the Russians captured completely Semyonovka. At least this information today was confirmed either by the Russian and the Ukrainian sources. If you remember, a few days ago we have already received some geolocations from the central part which confirmed the Russian progress in the area, and based on those geolocations we have adjusted the map, but most likely the Ukrainian slates are counter-attack the Russians, maybe managed to restore some positions. But now we have the final confirmation of the fall of the village. Most likely the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation will provide us today additional information about the progress in the area. The Ukrainians try to counterattack the Russian positions, so with a different type of weapon, but we see that the Ukrainians show less and less resistance. The most important updates are coming, of course, first from the line between Novobakhmutovka, Novosolovyovo, and Ocheretyne itself. We have the map, topographical map. As you can see, Ocheretyne is located on the biggest hill, and the biggest hill ever in the direction, 244 meters from the surface. The heads of this, let's say, landfill of this area, and in comparison with the, let's say, for example, with the situation Novobakhmutovka, the, let's say, the height of Novobakhmutovka is just 217 meters. Anyway, the Russians continue offensive operation, and today the sources report that the Russians continue moving further to the north with the purpose to cut the, let's say, Ocheretyne in two parts and to split the Ukrainian defense belt on the western and the eastern side. More details we continue receiving from Novobakhmutovka itself. The Russians stated that the Ukrainians stated the situation is very complicated. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians continue sending wave by wave inside of the village. And as a result of Russian attack, as we discussed in the previous update, the Russians either managed to enter, and furthermore, according to reports we continue receiving today, the Russians managed to establish complete control over this small village. This information was also confirmed by different mappers, including pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State. They also confirmed that the Russians captured Novobakhmutovka completely. When talking about the Russian sources, the Russians are saying that the clashes started in Solovyovo. So according to information we have, after the end of the battle for Novobakhmutovka, without any operational pause, without any, let's say, single day for rest, the Russians continue moving to the west and entered Solovyovo as well. So most likely today we're going to receive additional updates about this village, and then we will be able to either update the map or to keep everything as is. Furthermore, the sources reported that the Russians continue offensive further to the north, and that the Russians captured and cut physically the road between Ocheretyne and Alexandropol, N20, this one, and 0544, and this information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State. So if we summarize everything, currently this is something like this that is happening and taking place on this direction. So we see that situation is getting worse and worse. The Russians are not going to stop. They're going to push and increase the pressure today. According to Ukrainians, if you remember, they stated that by the, let's say, 9th of May, the Russians will try to capture Chasiv Yar, but most likely by the 9th of May, the Russians will try to establish complete control over Ocheretyne, Keramik, and Novomykhailivka. So, and they're about to complete this mission, and most likely they will do this, and then this is going to be a very perfect foothold for further possible offensive to the north in direction of Konstantinovka and encirclement of New York Toretsk agglomeration operation. Most likely something like this is going to happen. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates about the situation of Alexandrovka and Novobakhmutovka. The armed forces of Ukraine places on rotation its personnel in Novoalexandrovka, Novobakhmutovka. There's just no rotation. The forces withdrew since launch have been replaced by anything. In addition, the equipment also was left. So, according to information we have, the Ukrainians are running from Ocheretyne. The Ukrainians, for some reason, start running from Novoalexandrovka as well. This is very weird and interesting report, because Novoalexandrovka is located very far from the line of combat contact. Because if the Ukrainians continue withdrawing their positions as well, either from Novoalexandrovka, this will allow the Russians to start unexpected and crazy attack from Ocheretyne through the fields in the area, and then this is going to be complete collapse of Ukrainian defense belt, and I'm not even sure what the Ukrainians are going to do next if the Russians can move further to Novoalexandrovka due to complete absence of any troopers on this direction. Chasiv Yar, still no changes on the ground, just heavy explosions, heavy clashes. The Russians attacked, let's say, the town by the name of Konstantinovka. The Russians continue clearing operation in the vicinity of Klishchiivka with significant number of FPV drone strikes. So it's like most likely it reminds, let's say, preparation before ground operation, but yet no attempts to attack from the Russian side. Different mappers confirmed the Ukrainian counterattack progress between Ivanovsk and Klishchiivka. Some Russian sources start publishing the videos of counterattack, but the Russians were counterattack on some other direction. Yet the Ukrainians still control this territory, and so we will keep this area as is. Very interesting videos we start receiving from the north of Bogdanovka. On these videos we receive from the Russian side, the Russians are clearing the tree lines and the trenches in direction of this forest belt. I'll remind remind you that this is the biggest and the most fortified stronghold of the armed forces of Ukraine in Bogdanovka direction, and without taking under control this territory, the Russians have no chances to reach Seversky Donetsk Donbass Canal. So to bypass and to enter Kalinovka, the Russians somehow need to find a solution how to capture this forest, and most likely the Russians already started this operation. Sieversk direction, we have reports that the Russians continue offensive in Razdolovka, and today the Russians launched another wave of attack after a few days of pummeling and bombing the area. So a few more attacks. Most likely today we're going to receive additional updates from the Russian sources of progress along the railways and in Razdolovka itself. Bilogorovka, no changes. North in Kupinsk and Kupinsk direction, no changes as well. The most important update also is coming from Ukraine. We got today some updates, details about the military package Ukraine is going to receive. And I'll remind you that this night the Senate of the United States of America, adopted the law that allows them to send the military weapon and military equipment to Ukraine. The Senate adopted a package of bills on assistance to Ukraine and the confiscation of Russian assets in a procedural vote. So now Joe Biden needs to sign the papers. Maybe the Ukrainians, maybe Joe Biden will sign the papers today, and then Ukraine will start receiving significant number of weapon, armored vehicle, personal carrier. Most likely the Ukrainians during these next 2-3 months will receive the first F-16s from Norway or maybe from Denmark or something like this. United States of America from their side is going to send Bradleys, going to send Humvees, missiles for HIMARS with 300 kilometers distance. United Kingdom is also going to send up to 400 vehicles, 60 drones. So a very big powerful package that can't of course allow the Ukrainians to restore the territory until the border of 1991, but maybe this package will allow the Ukrainians to stabilize the situation and not to allow to happen the worst thing during the upcoming Russian greatest summer offensive operation. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.